It's about 10:02 according to my computer. So welcome to the June 2016 New Mexico Drought Monitoring Workgroup. This is Dave Dubois in Las Cruces. And let's go ahead and go around the call and go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Brandon Baker, Deer Reclamation, Malker.
Anne Marie Mathern with the USGS.
Dave Noblin, National Weather Service, El Paso.
Chris Romero, NRCS, Water Supply Specialist.
Okay.
Curtis McFadden, Army Corps of Engineers, Albuquerque District.
This is Brian here at the Weather Service. Folks, we have Royce Fontenot, our new service hydrologist, is with us as well. This is Sean Bennett, AMIC.
Any other folks? I thought I heard a beep.
Yeah, this is Sig Silver.
Hey, Sig. All right, do we have a drought monitor author on? Okay. Maybe they'll come on a little later. Alrighty, might as well get started. So Brian, are you taking the lead on the Weather Service briefing?
Yeah, we're going to go through the drought presentation here and kind of get Royce familiar with the process. And then I need to step out at 10:30 because I have a smoke coordination call, so I believe Sean and Royce will stay in and have the discussion with the rest of the folks on what we want to do with the drought monitor.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, I just wanted to show our front page here real quick because folks are obviously noticing the heat. And I'll show the slide about with the soil moisture, and that's really going to tell the story about what the impacts of the heat have been recently. But yesterday, Los Lunas hit 106, which broke the old record of 103, and Cochiti Dam was 105, and we saw Gallup Airport set an all-time new record high of 101 degrees. Which broke the previous record of 100 degrees. So very hot across our area, and this is what happens when we have a 600 decameter, 500 millibar high overhead. So this isn't the first day either. We had records on Sunday. In Albuquerque, we hit 103 on Sunday for Father's Day, and that also tied a record. And there was a slew of records on Saturday as well. So the heat is here, and it's going to stick around for a while. Unfortunately, it's just part of the entire monsoon season is having to deal with the heat when we start off. So I'll get into the slides. Try to move this out of the way. All right. So Dave, can you see the slides up there?
Looks good.
Okay. We'll get started. So for June's been interesting. We started out the month pretty wet across central and western New Mexico. Essentially, this was the first 5 days or so. Folks from Socorro, or Tier C to Socorro up to Grants, saw some pretty good precipitation. And for the month so far, these values are well above normal. And across the east, it's been very dry. So we started out pretty good, but it's dried out and conditions have really warmed up. For May, we did see some decent precipitation. Even though this image on the left has got a lot of these orange and yellow colors, there were still precipitation amounts reported at most sites. But when you look at the average, the east shows up as well below normal. But during May, we typically see quite a bit of precipitation across the east. So while the precipitation normals or the averages seem low, there still was some precipitation. The focus was really, though, across the west. where we had, anywhere from, say, 1 to 1.5 inches along the divide. So May was a pretty good month for western New Mexico. But the overall statewide precipitation averaged only 85% of normal, which was the 59th driest. So you can see here on the lower right, unlike last May, this May did end up below normal. For the calendar year, we are now below normal, about an inch below normal statewide, and unlike last year, we're favoring more like we've been in the last several years before that. And looking at the legacy precipitation summaries for the calendar year on the left, we're 72% of normal statewide, and on the right for the water year, still doing very good, but we all know from our previous calls that this is heavily weighed on by October, November, and December, which were really wet across the state, but really it's been kind of dry since. Looking at the water year, compared to the long-term numbers, still above normal for the water year. Going back 12 months, still pretty wet, and that brings in some of the wet periods that we saw last year. So here, this image on the left is the NASA Sport deep soil moisture 1 month change. So this is really telling here about what's been going on across the area since last month. I think these are the greatest change values that we have actually seen since we started showing these images. We're down in this 10 to 20% drier, and that's the whole column. So quite a big dry out for much of northern and southern New Mexico. And at the end of May, we were actually looking pretty good. So it's really drying out, and the heat is definitely not helping. And you can see that here on just looking at the top 10 centimeters on the left. It's widespread below 10% soil moisture values there on the left. And this is how we were doing at the end of May. So quite a big change. The regional drought status, about 27% of the region of the western United States seeing D1 to D4. And again, the focus continues to be across California for the most significant drought. And in New Mexico, we saw more improvement to the moderate drought conditions on that last drought monitor, which is showing only 16% of the state now in D1. And then we have this large area of abnormally dry conditions that still extends across a pretty good area of the state. And compared to 3 months ago, mostly it's just the expansion of the abnormally dry conditions compared to mid-March. Okay, so now we'll go into the extended outlooks. There's not much good news here, unfortunately. So the average sea surface temperature anomaly over the last month, starting to look a little La Niña-like. Quite a big difference from what we were talking about just a couple months ago. It's amazing how fast these things can change, especially on such a large scale as the Pacific is. So we're starting to see below normal anomalies along the eastern equatorial Pacific. And taking a look at the various Niño regions, you see that downhill slide since mid to late winter, and now some of these regions starting to actually show up some negative indices during the last month or so. The forecaster and model consensus from CPC and IRI showing, while we're currently, overall seeing these El Nino conditions rapidly declining, and the potential or the probability of La Nina is climbing very quickly. So there is a La Nina watch in effect. And the the model plumes here showing that the forecast in fact does show that we're going to start sliding down into this La Nina condition as we go through late summer, early fall, and especially through the winter. So yeah, they're ending the El Nino advisory, and we'll have this La Nina watch continuing probably through midsummer. So the July 2016 precipitation outlook across our area is just for equal chances. There's no real strong indicator whether we would be below, near, or above normal, so that's what we get for equal chances. And temperature, this is not really hard to believe given what's going on now. If that trend continues, we'll certainly see above normal temperatures favored through July across New Mexico and the desert Southwest. And then going into mid to late summer period, still looking at some above normal precipitation along the Gulf Coast region, which makes sense given the amount of tropical activity that's been going on in the western Atlantic. If that continues, it shouldn't have a hard time verifying this forecast. And hopefully that will help us out with the monsoon if we can get more easterly waves moving up into this area. But overall, we're still under this equal chances category through the remainder of the summer. And again, temperature, no surprise here, above normal across much of the western United States. And just kind of an outlook to autumn and winter. Unfortunately, with La Niña, generally, we see the probabilities for below normal precipitation across much of the west during the fall, and then especially during the winter. So if you remember back when we were showing the probabilities when we were in the El Niño state, it's pretty much the exact opposite, in fact, where we had all these above normals across the southern United States and below normals across the north. You just flip-flop that for the winter. However, we kind of know what happened during this last winter where it didn't necessarily pan out for large portions of that area. So it is important to remember that not every La Niña is dry. Generally, 1 in 6 La Niñas in New Mexico are wet. So fingers are crossed big time that we'll be. PDO. And the PDO is exceptionally negative right now. So hopefully it'll be a wet one, but with these outlooks, that's not what they're calling for from CPC. Here's seasonal outlook showing, obviously this happens during the summer. We get the monsoon starts developing across the area, and we usually see drought removal sometime mid to late July. We're generally clear of all drought categories across New Mexico. So that's what we have here, and I'll turn it back to you, Dave.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions? No questions? Well, before you duck out, Brian, I just want to get some thoughts on some changes, some preliminary thoughts here before we move on. Just looking at the precip over the shorter term, maybe the last couple months over on the west side. What are your thoughts on a little bit of the D1 in the north part of that moving down? Because currently it goes through McKinley, Cibola, Catron, etc. But it didn't look like there was quite a bit of precip short term through, especially Cibola County, and maybe even northern Catron.
They're talking about removing some of the D1, or
yeah. What are your thoughts on?
You have that QPF thing showing the west being wetter. Yeah. Go back to that chart. That one there.
Yeah, so for June.
I think we can probably keep it through Hidalgo, Grant, and probably southern Catron. I don't know about, does it warrant D1 with the short-term increases over that area? So basically just cutting off that Cibola, northern Catron part.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I'd like to maybe see what happens with this dry lightning pattern that we're going into here over the next week. We have the North Fire, which is sitting right in the middle of this above normal blob, and
Right.
that's burned over 30,000 acres.
Yeah.
So it just seems like that area probably should stay in the D1. The Continental Divide is going to have a real challenge, I think, this week. It's going to, we'll see what happens because we're expecting dry thunderstorms along the Divide today and tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
And then a kind of a little bit of a minor wind event and very, very dry conditions through late week. So I'll be curious to see how many fires can fire up along that area.
Yeah.
So I don't really have too much confidence in changing much just yet. Especially considering how things can dry out so quickly here.
Yeah.
With
yeah,
temperatures, record temperatures and humidities in the single digits. It doesn't take much.
Right.
So what you gained, you got by flash drought.
Yeah, really, it's been dry for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something's probably
No, I definitely agree to that.
eliminated.
Yeah, I was this last weekend I was hiking up in the Sacramento range around the ski area, and I noticed it looked pretty good in terms of the native vegetation. There was a lot of green in the northern part by Sierra Blanca. So, and that's in D0, I mean, sorry. But it's been a little short on precip over the longer. It's been about average, I think, in that area. And then with your, but I
think most.
Go ahead.
Most of the area that's in D0 is doing okay with greenouts.
Yeah.
I know, that McKinley County has had a good spring for sure. But more recently, it's been really dry.
Yeah.
I think that, the RHs in Albuquerque were down to 2-3% for a couple days, and it was like that for most of the whole area along the Divide.
Yeah.
For several days.
So what are your thoughts on the central, along the Rio Grande Valley? I mean, that's the area where we had the North Fire, but
yeah. Yeah, personally, I'm not really sure what's going on around Socorro County. I know in my own yard that my soil is hydrophobic at this point. So it seems more than just abnormally dry here, but this is normally a dry time of year, so it's kind of relative.
Yeah. No, I agree on that. Yeah, and I was just looking at like Hillsboro, it's below normal. They've been short on precip throughout the year. And that's within that same general area. North Fire, Central Rio Grande.
There's kind of this little bullseye in that area. Yeah, I mean, the legacy precip showing across northern Katrin, this Quemado site, down 20-30% for the calendar year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think there's probably still some pretty dry pockets out along this area.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe some of the other folks have, some additional feedback that might help answer some of those questions.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing it on the Pecos too. We've been going up and up with our release for the Shiner to try to keep the river connected. So I think the ground moisture and the fang storage, everything's just tanking, Our losses are just going straight up. things are drying out.
Okay. Well, I think we should keep an eye on that area and evaluate it through the, because our next call we should be getting some numbers show up there with the start of the monsoon. Since our next call will probably be toward the end of July.
Yeah, in the near term, the forecast is looking favorable for at least northeast New Mexico.
That's good.
Looks like the high is going to shift east, give some dry, mix of wet and dry for central and western New Mexico. Then it's going to shift west over the Great Basin. And the northeast looks like it could get a pretty good douse here, maybe over the weekend into next week. So someone's going to get it, at least here in the beginning, and it's probably going to be the northeast.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some precip out over that area, get rid of the D0, do some erasing. But we'll see. Okay. I think that was a good discussion. I think we keep a watch over the next 3 or 4 weeks and see about reevaluating it once the monsoon gets cranked up. Any other comments? Anything from Santa Teresa office? I think Dave's on the call.
Hello, Dave.
Hello.
No, not really anything revealing. It's just been hot and dry. We're running about 33% normal precip for the year in our region in the southern part. And again, we're hoping for the monsoon, but local studies have kind of shown that when you go from a strong El Niño into the La Niña, that getting a normal to above normal monsoon is probably about a 22-33% chance. So I think we're fighting the odds. I hope that's wrong. You still see a lot of dryness. They've had some, but not maybe substantially much rain along the front range of the Blacks there in Grant County, Lake Roberts and stuff like that. But I don't know if it'd be enough to really at this time either to say we can remove a drought category. I'll probably with you wait and see what as we go into hopefully a start of a monsoon season here. But it's been very dry. In fact, the day we had 108 record here at El Paso, humidity was like 4%. The good news there was the evaporative coolers worked great. So
yeah,
that's the only good news.
And no need for to dry your clothes in the dryer. Just open the window in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we're not overly optimistic here, I guess, is the bottom line.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your insight in that. I'm just curious about also just in the large scale features in Mexico with that tropical system, how that's going to help or hinder a moisture plume coming out of Mexico. I was just looking at go ahead.
Few days here. It probably is going to do both. In other words, it starts to look at the forecast soundings toward the end of the week. Unfortunately, are very dry in the low levels. So that probably is a dry. If we get some, and we probably will, if the plume gets some dry lightning, and then really have to risk some real strong outflow winds with that. So that's not good. As we go more towards the weekend, we get the forecast indicate a little better plume. Maybe that could be a little wetting rain. So it might be a little bit of a start there. But again, it's with that huge ridge overhead, that suppresses convection too. So you got those two elements opposing each other. But I will put in the fire weather this afternoon, at least as we start around midweek toward the weekend. The probably danger would be the dry lightning and the strong winds.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the input. So I think let's move on to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. Raymond Abeta.
Sure. Okay, I'll start in the Rio Grande. The storages of Toro, 29,321 acre feet. Herring, 136, 299. Elvado, 95, 910. The Abiquiu is 125, 959. Coach T, 45, 672. Hamilton View is 326, 694. Caballo, 55, 918. On the Pecos, Santa Rosa, 104,625 acre feet. Summer, 32, 308. Brantley, 22,084 acre feet. As far as the water conditions, we're doing well in the Rio Grande. We had a nice pulse for the silver minnow, and try to help out with spawning. So we're still in 4 digits as far as flows through the Rio Grande, which is really, really nice after the last few years of the heavy drought. And by this coming year, we've already depleted a lot of storage for the minnow, keeping the river continuous, and even the district has gone through a lot of storage by this time. So far, the main stem and the chama and everything's just held up really well and kept us nice and healthy, and we're still doing really well. On the Pecos, so like I was saying, it's a little bit different. They're starting to slow their taper off into Santa Rosa now. Those held up well for a while. But it's below summer that we've been increasing our releases probably once or twice a week now. Just trying to keep it continuous all the way down past Acme. So, as I said, the heat's really taking a toll. We're still connected. We made another increase this morning, so hopefully that'll make a difference. The one good thing is always CID decided to do a block release this coming Monday. They're going to move 25,000 acre feet down to Brantley. 20,000 will be from Santa Rosa, 5,000 from Sumner. So that will really give us a nice shot in the arm through the whole river system there. And hopefully we'll have a nice tapered tail out on that. So that will give us a break as far as releasing for the shiner. We also had the lawn pumps on after that. So anyway, we're doing it. We're starting to feel the heat, feel the effects of it. But otherwise, we're well. We're connected and doing well. So it's good effect. So, any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Raymond. All righty. So next on the agenda, we have Chris Romero, NRCS.
Yep, I'm here. I don't have a whole lot. The June 1 forecast came out for those rivers that were actually forecast for in the month of June. Pretty much for the Pecos, up at the headwaters near Pecos, you're looking at the high 80s percent of average, and then as you make it down to Santa Rosa, it's about 67% of average. For the Rio Grande, the headwaters, you're looking at 92% of average for the April to September forecasts, and 75% from June to September, and then it kind of decreases as you go south, as you get down towards the Jemez. It's about 57% of average, and then San Marcial all the way down south, 31% of average. See the San Juan and southern Colorado, Up by the Navajo Reservoir inflow, it's 76% of the average. And then down at La Plata, it's about 87%. So, and Navajo Reservoir is, pretty much almost full. And so they had a good year up there. The Rio Hondo, surprisingly, is at 85% of average. And, that's kind of all based on the weighted numbers that you talked about earlier, October, November, December at the beginning of the water year down south. Let's see, what else was there? Our last site melted out about a week and a half ago, so the Taos Powderhorn's officially dry. That was the last one to hold on to any snow, and it melted out, I think, on the 11th of this month. And just on a side note, coming up here in a few days, they're called the master stations. We have 2 of them out there, and they're basically all the snowtells around the state pretty much send their data to the master station, which in turn puts it out into the system, interprets it and puts it out into the system. They're doing some maintenance on it on the 2 sites this weekend, so the result is a possible delay in the numbers and data you see from our NRCS Snowtell website. So once they come back up, you'll start to see the data start to flow back online, and they get caught up fairly quickly. But just a heads up, if you happen to be checking any sites for climate data, there may be a delay over the weekend. And that's pretty much all I had. It's really my maintenance season. I've been all over the state, pretty much all month long. Was working our way from Colorado over to the sites up in the Sangre de Cristos, and then down even into Santa Fe. We had to wait for the snow to melt out to get into those sites, but we've pretty much made our rounds now, and things are looking good. But it doesn't sound very promising for this winter coming. I was hoping for another good one, but we'll see how this La Niña pans out. But are there any questions on anything?
As long as it doesn't burst. Like your diapers or something. You know what I mean?
You're all stunned again?
It doesn't look like it, yeah. Yeah.
Amazed? Okay.
Well, sounds good. Thanks, Chris, for the report.
No problem.
Sounds like somebody's having fun. Alrighty, let's move on to USGS. Anne-Marie.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
USGS is going to present streamflow conditions for the 2015 water year. So from October 2015 through the end of May, we're looking at 21 gauges that are relatively unmanaged for New Mexico, and normal flow compared to the historical averages defined as 90 to 110% of average. Below 90% of historical average for a specific gauge is below, and above 110% is above average for that gauge. Looking at the 21 stations used in this analysis, 12 of them were at average or above average for their period of record for the gauges. The highest was Gallinas Creek near Montezuma, which is at the end of May was running at 135% of average. And the low was the Canadian River near Taylor Springs, which was about 12% of average. Median was 92% of average. Looking by basins, San Juan River Basin is represented by the Animas River. That's number 19 on the table, and that's was running at 80% of average. The Upper Rio Grande tributaries, numbers 7 through 12, 54 to 130% of average. The Jemez River, number 13, at 75% of average. Upper Rio Grande main stem is represented by the Rio Grande Taos Junction Bridge, number 9, and that was at 98% of average at the end of May. Looking at the Canadian River Basin, tributaries in Colfax County, the headwaters, numbers 1, 2, and 3, 72 to 106% of average. Moving downstream, the tributaries in Mora County, numbers 5 and 6, at 35 to 79% of average. And the main stem, number 4, is about 12% of the historic average. Pecos River Basin, the Upper Pecos in San Miguel County, numbers 14 and 15. Pecos River at Pecos and the Gallinas at Montezuma are at 111, and as I said previously, 135% of average. Lower Pecos in Otero and Eddy counties, numbers 16, 17, and 18, 111 to 118% of average. And finally, the Gila Basin in Grant County, represented by sites 20 and 21. Mogollon Creek is at 90% of historic average, and the Gila River at Red Rock is at 93% of average. So in general, everything is moving down from last time we reported, as would be expected at this time of year. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, the state engineers report.
So this is Molly. We sent. Oh, you got the report. Great. I just wanted. We have a new employee. Charles Lawyer is here on the phone with us, but sometime hopefully we get him down there and you can meet him in person. So this is our standard report. I think that we can just kind of scroll through the slides. It's our standard format. We have some graphical view of the reservoir storage. So we can go to the next slide. And that's the legend, which now we put on each slide. That seems to be working well. So the next one, please. So Navajo, so pretty much where it was last month, and a little bit above average. Next slide. There we go. Ute, same story there, pretty much the same as last month, and above average. Santa Rosa, I'm going to stop saying the same thing over and over, so anyway, we'll go to one that's different. Still not looking too badly on the Pecos. So that's, gone down a little bit, Brantley. So Heron, a little bit higher than last month, but still well below average. And Alvado still well below average. I mean, the whole Rio Grande. So anyway, Abiquiu. Hopefully our numbers match pretty closely with Raymond. There's Elephant Butte, way below average. And I think we have Caballo. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, it is in tabular form.
Okay, any questions for Molly? Alrighty.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for getting the numbers out there. Much appreciated. And let's see, next on agenda, number 7, NMDA. Do we have either Les or Ryan on the call? Didn't think so. No. All right. We'll catch up to them a little later. Do we have Susan Rich on the call? Alrighty. We'll have to get in touch with her. Get some fire updates, acres and things. So, Weather Service, are you still giving forecast to the Doghead in north?
Yeah, Dave, we have an IMET on station.
IMET, okay. Just curious.
And we've been doing spot forecasts for the North Fire and other ones as they come in.
Any other fires that you're called to do any forecasts for?
We're still doing spots for the North Fire as they come in. We did a spot for the Battleship Fire, both last night and this morning, and then we had a new start right before the meeting. I can't remember the name. That was up in the North Central. It was a brand new start. So that's all that's come in so far.
Okay. How about down south, Dave?
We're providing a spot for the turkeys, which is around the cliff dwellings. I think they're kind of letting that burn as a controlled burns. And then we have our IMET deployed in Arizona on the cedar fire. And whenever another fire comes up, we do a spot. So, but that's the most active area that we're doing right now: cedar fire and then turkeys.
Okay. Alrighty. And do we have Anthony Chavez on the call? Didn't think so. I didn't hear him on. Okay, well, do we have any general comments from anybody? Any drought reports? Anything noteworthy for the group? It's quiet.
I can give you guys a little update on Navajo operations.
Sure.
They've been going on for a month of a spring release out of Navajo. Their goal was try to hit 5,000 CFS release, but they missed that mark due to potential overbank flooding, and so they released about the peak of 4,200 CFS out of Navajo for about a week or so. They're about to finish their operation, and they're going to ramp down. Sometime next week, it's going to be a 12-day ramp down to native flows. So that's what's going on in Navajo right now. Any questions on that?
All right. Thanks, Curtis.
No problem.
All right. Any other bits of information? All right. We in terms of any meetings, we've got our state climate meeting next week, starting on. The meeting actually starts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if anybody else is interested, let me know. Just send me an email, and it should be a good meeting. We've got about 70 or so registered, somewhere around there, maybe upper 60s. Okay, doke. That about wraps. Let's put together a time for next month's drought monitoring work group call. And our first times we usually do it is after the CPC, the third Thursday, the following week, which would be like the 26th. So July 26th. Anybody have any problems there? Is the weather service available?
Yep, we'll be available. No problems with that date here.
Okay. Anybody else have any problems?